to his friend Cornelius Minicianus. I can now detail to you all the difficulties I have experienced in the public indictment involving the province of Baetica, for it had many ramifications, with quite frequent hearings and considerable variations. With the variations and wider series of hearings, Caecilius Classicus, a disgusting, splendidly able man, had in his capacity as proconsul in the province governed in a manner no less brutal than squalid. This was in the same year that Marius Priscus governed Africa. Priscus was a native of Baetica, and Classicus was from Africa. Hence the bondmode of the Baeticans, which circulated for grievances two of the illicit witticisms, either a nasty one and got one back. But whereas marriage was indicted publicly by single community and by many individuals privately, Classicus was set upon by the whole province. Classicus forestalled the accusation, the accusation by dying, whether the chance of suicide, the cause of his death being uncertain though suspicious. It seemed credible that he had wished to end his life, since no defense could be offered, but on the other hand it was surprising that he had escaped the shame of condemnation by dying when he had shown no shame in performing acts worthy of condemnation. In spite of this, the Vaticans persisted with the indictment even when he was dead. This was according to the laws, but the practice had fallen into abeyance and was not reintroduced after a long interval. The plaintiffs further stated that they were bringing charges against the allies and agents of Classicus, and they demanded that they be investigated, citing each by name. I represented the Vaticans conjointly with Lucius Albinus, who is fluent and elegant speaker. We had for some time liked each other, but as a result to this sad obligation, I have begun to feel a more glowing affection for him. This desire for prestige, particularly in matters intellectual, ne felt pas partager, but between us there was no competition or rivalry, for in bearing the yoke equally we were striving in the interest of the case and not of ourselves. Both its importance and its usefulness seem to demand that we should not shoulder this greater burden by each making a single speech. We felt that we felt that times of we felt that time of forces, and our lives would give out on us if we wipe these numerous charges and all the defendants into one bundle. We feared too that the concentration of the judges might be not merely wearied, but also baffled by the plethora of names and charges, and then again that favor for each two of them, when combined and intermingled, might win for each individual the collective impact of all of them. Finally, we felt that the most powerful among them would offer the least important defendants as a sort of expiation and themselves slip through the net while others were punished. Goodwill and canvassing become dominant when concealed under the cloak of sentencing. We also took into account that exemplary tale of Sertorius, who ordered the stronger and the weakest individual among his soldiers to pull off the horse tail. You know how the story goes. For we to release that such a large number of defendants could be bested only if we picked them off one by one. We took the view that the first essential was to prove Classicus guilty. This was the most appropriate way to pass on to his allies and agents. First, these allies and agents could not be found guilty unless he was a wrongdoer. We had once attached to Classicus two of them, Babius Probus and Fabius Hispanus, both of them very be very both of them very be, both of them being very influential, and Hispanus also very eloquent. So far as Classicus was concerned, our efforts were safe and straightforward, for he had left a written account in his own hand of the money he has received from each transaction and each indictment. He also said arrogant and boastful letters to some lady friend at Rome. These are his actual words. All hail, I am on my way to you, having gained my freedom, for I've sold a parcel of Baetica and made a cool 4 million. Hispanus and Probus caused us a lot of sweat. Before embarking on the charges against them, I thought it vital to take pains to establish that their carrying out of orders was a crime. Had I not done this, finding the gents guilty would have been futile, for the defense of their behalf was not denial of the charges, but a plea for pardon on the grounds of necessity, for they claimed that being provincials, they were forced to carry out every command of governors. Claudius Restitutus, who replied to me on behalf of the defense, and is practice, careful speaker, ready for any argument however unexpected, often remarks that he was never so befuddled and confused as when he saw the arguments in which he placed all his trust had been frustrated, and went out of his speech for the defense. The outcome of our strategy was that the Senate decreed that the positions which Classico said before going to the province should be set apart for the East and bequeathed to his daughter, while the remainder was conferred on the persons he had plundered. A further, a further clause decreed that the money which he had paid to his creditors should be returned. His Panus and Probus were relegated for 5 years. So serious was the charge against them, whereas at the outset it was uncertain it was a crime at all. A few days later we indicted Claudius Fuscus, son-in-law of Classicus and Stylonius Priscus, who had been a tribune of a cohort under Classicus. The outcome differed for each of them, for Priscus was banished from Italy for 2 years, and Fuscus was acquitted. At the third hearing, we thought it most convenient to assemble several defendants together, for we felt that if the investigation was dragged out too far, those hearing the case will be glutted and rather bored with it, with the result that the justice and severity which they administer would be enfeebled. Then again, the remaining defendants were in general lesser figures, held back for the occasion. The one exception was Classicus' wife. Though her complicity was suspected, there did not appear to be sufficient proof to convict her, as for Classicus' daughter. Likewise, one of the accused. There were not even any suspicions attached to her. So, when I reached her name at the end of my speech, by the end of the case there was no need to fear, as there had been at the outset, that the reliability of the entire indictment would be diminished in this way. I thought I thought it the most honorable cause not to bear heavily on her, since she did not deserve it, and I made the point openly and in sundry ways. Not only did I question the ambassadors on whether they had informed me of any irregularity which they were sure could be factually proved. I then sought the advice of the Senate. Need they think that I would launch such eloquence as I possessed like some weapon at the throat of an innocent woman? Finally, I rounded off the whole topic with these closing words. Someone will ask, so are you a judge in this case? No, I am not, but I recall that I was assigned from the judge's bench to undertake the prosecution. This was the end of a case which involved so very many defendants. Some were acquitted, but more were condemned and also relegated, some for a period and others for life. The same senatorial decree registered in fullest testimony is approval for our diligence, honesty, and integrity, a worthy reward which alone was commensurate with our great labors. You can visualize you can visualize how exhausted we were by reason of our numerous speeches and verbal exchanges and the interrogation, support and refutation of so many witnesses. Again, how taxing and troublesome it was to say no to the secret of pleas of friends of so many defendants, and they to hash their opposition openly. I shall cite one of these replies which I gave when some of the very judges were loudly protesting to me on behalf of a highly influential defendant. I remarked, he will be just as innocent as now if I recount all the facts. You can gather from this the extent of the challenges and also the abuse which we endured, admittedly for only a short time, for honesty momentarily gives offense to those who oppose it, but thereafter wins respect and praise from those same persons. I could not have given you a clearer picture of the trial. You will say it was not so important. Why have you said of me with such a long letter? Very well, don't keep asking what goes on in Rome, and bear in mind that the letter is not so long, in that it has taken in all those days, all those hearings, and finally all those defendants and indictments. I think I have described them all with as much brevity as carefulness. But I was rushed to claim carefulness, for all too late something which I have passed over occurs to me. You will have it, though it will be out of place. This attack the Homers and many writers follow his example. It is in general quite an elegant device, though that is not the reason which I shall employ it. One of the witnesses, either because he was angry at being called up against his will, or because he had been summoned by one of the defendants to, to weaken the indictment, prosecuted Norbanus Lycianus, one of the investigating ambassadors, on the charge of collusion in the case of Casta, wife of Classicus. The law, as provided by the retrial of defendant, should be compelled before any investigation of a prevaricator. The reason doubtless being that the honesty of an accuser is best assessed from the accusation itself. But Norbanus obtained no protection from the order prescribed by law, nor from his status as ambassador, nor from his official role as investigator. Such was the flaming hatred in which he was engulfed, for he was in general the weak person who had exploited the era of Domitian like many others. On this occasion, he had been chosen by the province to conduct the investigation, not because he was a decent and honest man, but because he was an enemy of Classicus who had previously banished him. Norbanus demanded a postponement and a statement of the charges, but he obtained neither and was compelled to reply to the charges there and then. When he did so, his weak and debased character caused me to doubt whether it was a show of assurance, of integrity, for it was certainly carefully prepared. These were many accusations more damaging than that of prevarication. Indeed, to his counsels, Pomponius Rufus and Libo Frugi adduced damning evidence that in Domitian's day he had appeared before a judge in support of the accusers of Salvius Liberalis. He was condemned and relegated to an island. So when I indicted Casta, my main attack was that her accused had been brought down on charge of prevarication, but my attack was vain, for that calm went the other way and was unprecedented that the defendant should be acquitted, though her accuser had been condemned for prevarication. You will ask what our reaction was to all this. We pointed out to the Senate that it was from Norbanus that we had been informed of the indictment by the state, and that we must now learn it afresh, since he was found guilty of prevarication. So, during his indictment, we remained seated. Norbanus subsequently attended every day of the trial, persisting to the end with his attitude steadfastness or shamelessness. I am asking myself whether I have been left something out, and again I almost have. On the final day, Salvius Liberalis is awake to rebuke against the remaining ambassadors on the grounds that they had not prosecuted all the defendants as prescribed by the prophets. Since he is a powerful and eloquent spokesman, he put them in a difficult position. I defended them as excellent individuals, and they were most grateful. They publicly declared that they owe it to me that they survived that virulence. This will be the end of the letter, really the end, and I shall add not a single letter, even if I still think of something which I have left out very well.